everyone, and welcome to another episode of Respecting the Beer. My name is Gary Arndt. With me, as usual, is Bobby Fleshman, Allison McCoy, and we also have our guests from our previous episode, Steve Lonsway and Oliver Behm from the Hop Yard and the Stonearch Brewery. Last time we talked about how you guys got into brewing. This episode, I want to talk about this area, this city, as a destination for beer. Last episode, you mentioned Asheville as a destination. Other people probably mentioned, I think, Boulder, Colorado as a place that has a big craft beer scene, maybe Portland. I used to be, before I did what I do now, I used to be involved in the travel industry. I was a travel writer, and it was a running joke that tourist boards would, for every community in the country, started talking about their craft beer scene. So this has become very popular. It used to be back in the day that every city may have had one brewery. So in Wisconsin, the George Walter Brewing Company, Adlerbrow was the Appleton. Yep. Chief Oshkosh had one. Point Brewery, they're still around, was the Stevens Point one. That kind of went away. It consolidated into very big breweries. And now you're seeing kind of the opposite, where it's fragmenting again. But each community now has multiple breweries. How do you think that this area, the Fox Cities, is becoming a destination for craft beer? That are you seeing people coming here specifically to visit breweries?
For sure. Absolutely. It also takes more than breweries. You have to have preferably a safe environment. You need to have parking. You need to have all those other things. When I travel, I specifically will go to places where there is multiple opportunities to visit breweries. I'm not into distilleries. I am not as much into wineries. It's 100% breweries. And I will pick a town that has 4 or 5 versus a town that has 2 or 3, because that gives me more opportunities, and I'll make sure that I visit every one. So when you asked in the last episode that, hey, how many can this town handle? It's yet to be found, but I think more, because I invite that, because then all of a sudden we have as many as maybe the neighboring town, and then we get those people like me that want to hit numerous breweries.
I think Appleton has a great beer culture. I think maybe it's still too far towards the, Busch Light, Bud Light, Miller Lite crowd right now, but I do think the craft beer is growing. I think Appleton's got a long ways to go, and I think that can be a positive, meaning I always look at the Fox Valley area as like 5 to 10 years behind everyone else. So like hazy IPAs, for example, that's kind of old hat in Madison and Milwaukee, but fairly new in Appleton for some reason. I think just the people here are a little bit slower to change. I've seen that in my place anyways. And it only being open for a couple of years, I always look at like the beer markets by us. So it's, it's Appleton, there's Green Bay, there's Madison, Milwaukee. I think Green Bay has a bit of a more destination just because of the Packers. Mm-hmm. And I think we've all talked about it as a group of like, how do we make Appleton a better beer culture where people are coming for breweries, going to all of them? I think it happens. But I think there's a lot of room for growth for all of us. And that future can be really cool, because that means we're going to make a lot of changes, or maybe there's new breweries coming or distilleries or whatever have you. That's going to be really cool for tourists who want to come to this town and see how we're changing things. So we're really excited about that.
Just out of curiosity, and I don't know the answer to this, are there any breweries that have failed here?
Yes.
Yeah, Fox Classic. I was in school at the time. They shut down, I think, in 92, maybe 93. Yeah.
Not since like the most recent craft beer revival.
No. The gentleman that we took over was sustaining. He was pretty early into it, so I don't know if he would have continued his success. I think he would have. But yeah, I don't think there was a failure.
So far, so good.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was at a conference a couple months ago, and they were talking about like the beer scene right now is growing, but it's not growing nearly as rapidly as it used to. So it's, the saturation point, where are we, and that kind of thing. And they were basically saying, if you're doing really, really well in your town, you could be hurting another brewery because of where we're at right now with saturation levels and things of that nature. So to go back to our point in our last podcast about us working together, that was the whole point of this discussion was, get involved with your other breweries, because you need to keep each other upright. And if we all work together, that can be done. But if one guy goes out on their own and like, we're just going to be us and do our thing and we're going to hurt everyone, they're going to probably, especially if they're busy, they're going to hurt another brewery. So it kind of forces us all to work together, and we want to anyways.
Yeah, and I
to help
think
each other.
location too has a big play in that, because so we're in downtown. Fleshman's is Appleton Beer Factory. I can see it. It's right through the window. We are exactly 10 paces apart, and we will have folks come in and they're like, oh, tell us about the local breweries. We're like, okay, have you had dinner yet? Had you not had dinner yet? Where are you staying? And they're like, oh, we're staying downtown. We're like, great, go across the street or go across the alley. You're going to get a pint there. Then you're going to go down and get the best cheese curds in the state at Stonearch. But then if they're like, oh, well, we're actually staying down the street or we're staying somewhere else, we're like, oh, great. Okay, you've got a car. Cool. Hop Yard's up north. It's on Northland. And so we try and strategize people's experience, because we're not a town that has just all these breweries right next to each other. It just so happens that ABF and us are. But depending on where the people are going and what people are doing, I think this is where the conversation comes in. And because we know each other's businesses, we can kind of strategize like, oh, this is how we get craft beer followers to then immerse themselves if they're from out of town.
And it occurs to me that really what we're trying to do is catch the fleeting attention of the consumer, because we're competing against so many things inside and outside of the hospitality world. And I think us working together to provide music and food and experience together is important for sure. We're competing against a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
We actually had a map on our wall for the first 2 years that would say where to go next. And then we put all the other breweries on there so that people, like, if they were coming to our place off the highway, maybe they want to know where another brewery is. So we'd have this map and it would show like, go here, which is kind of cool. People did actually utilize it.
Yeah, well, at the end of the day, Oliver's and my place are the furthest apart. And what is that, 2.5, maybe
I was going to
3
say
miles?
in a big city
3-minute
that's
drive.
next door.
Yeah,
So we're
exactly.
Yeah.
So bike friendly for
Yeah.
sure.
Oh, absolutely.
Walk friendly, maybe not as much, but
Yeah.
with Uber
Yeah.
and all that, visit them all.
if you extend that radius to 10 miles, you probably can include another 10 or 12 breweries.
Yeah.
I don't want to even try to name them. I'll forget them. But
Sure.
yeah, there's enough here.
And actually, to your question, one of those actually did close just this past year. And so I
you're
think
right.
in the larger...
That was in Nina?
Nina.
Yeah. It's so, I don't know how much we want to peel back the layers of that, but there are some economical challenges that we can't ignore. And their issue was to do with their leaseholder
Yeah.
or their landlord.
But also,
Yeah.
I mean, it goes along with what Oliver so poignantly said, and I'm going to steal it 100 million times over, is that it's this is the most expensive way to make beer or to enjoy beer.
Yes.
It is, everything shiny is expensive, but also labor costs, because in order to run these little breweries, it takes people, and we want to pay them, what they're worth. And so it's just very, very thin margins. So some breweries, if we don't have that community, will get hit by those margins.
Yeah, and you have to start with quality beer. I think that goes without saying. If anyone's still open today, they probably have quality beer or an infinite source of capital to keep it afloat.
Quality beer.
Yeah.
And consistently quality.
Yeah,
Back in the 90s, and I've lived through the ebbs and flows of this industry, there was a lot of startups in the 90s that just turned out terrible beer. And that affects all of us. And in getting back to the cohabitation that we have, we need Oliver to make great beer. We need McFleshman's to make good beer, because otherwise these people won't drink craft beer. And I've seen it. Now I know when a new brewery comes in, I'm a little apprehensive sometimes to try it.
It's true.
I'm super happy, and I'll say that honestly to you, Oliver, having the first beer that I had of yours, like, oh, thank God it's good.
Right.
Thank God you liked it.
Yeah, thank God, because it can wreck an industry or wreck a destination.
Yeah, I think people don't realize in this industry just how fragile it really is to operate a brewery. When customers come in, they see a bunch of people there, and they're like, wow, this place is really rock and roll.
And they're running the numbers.
Yeah, they're like,
Yeah.
oh my God, they're making so much money,
Yeah.
and they don't realize how expensive it really is to run and operate a brewery. And if you're a brewery, whether you started with, a huge system or you grew into it, like, we're just trying to grow. And it's like every time I turn around, it's just massive amounts of money that you have to buy equipment for. And that's just if everything runs smoothly.
Right.
The moment something breaks, you have to figure out, how to fix it because you can't afford to buy another one or even pay someone to fix it.
Yeah.
So that's like helping each other out comes to mind. Like I bought a pump to get our barrel aged beer out and it didn't work.
Yeah.
And we were, covered in beer and we're like pulling our hair out, we want to cry. Well, call Bobby. He had the right pump. Saved the day, and that's how we have to work together because we just can't afford to go out and buy.
There's no less than 5 breweries that borrow that pump as a side note.
I'm going to need it again, by the way.
It sits idle. It's fine.
Well, and that is because we, at least through the university or through various avenues, we can find used equipment. And we've had so many just issues of like, oh, if only we had this one thing. And so to the internet you go, and eBay is our best friend. Only we bought so much stuff off eBay. But you just start to collect this equipment because it's going to solve some problem you don't even know yet that's going to happen.
Yeah, you start to gain a sixth sense of what's going to break next, too. Allison can attest to this.
Yeah, Bobby wakes up at 6 a.m. and he's just like, or actually 6 a.m. That's a lie. You're up at 3. Anyway, and he's just like, the glycol today. I sense it. Lo and behold, the glycol has a button going off or a bell.
Yeah. There's this overlap in the morning where both Bobby and I are up, but on completely different ends of our day. I mentioned in the last episode, you're kind of competitors, but it also seems there's maybe even a greater element of rising tides lift all boats. So with that, what have you done and what do you think you can do going forward? Perhaps that's a better question for promoting Appleton and the Fox Cities as a destination for beer.
Great.
How does this become the new Asheville?
Fox Valley Lagerfest, the first Saturday in October.
Oh, nice plug. Look
at that. Very nice. Very nice.
I think we're working on a IPA festival for next summer, which I think would be fun. We meet quite a bit to talk about like how we can accomplish this, and there's not one specific answer, and I don't even know if we all know what it's going to take. Sometimes it's just luck. There are things that I think that we can control and help in those endeavors, but I don't think we have the answer. Otherwise we would have done it.
From my perspective, I think ironically, to become a beer destination, you think less and less about the beer. So once you have the beer, right, and you know that's done, you've got to move on. You don't just continue to make more iterations on that beer. I don't think that works like it used to. I think you have to think, what am I going to add from outside the sphere? Because we're competing against spirits and RTDs, these seltzers, and so on and so on and so on. So we have to figure out how to overlap with that without selling our soul. I think that's the key to making a successful beer destination.
So not to become a destination for premium White Claw.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's a slippery slope. Once we have 25 seltzers on tap, we may have gone too far.
And we've talked, and we still need to finalize some details, and I think it's a direction that we need to go. Create our own craft beer week. There is a national one, which is awesome. It brings a lot of attention to our industry, but doing our own, I know other communities have done it. We create our own craft beer week, whereas we bring in people from out of town to solely search out the 3, 4, or 5 breweries in our direct region and build off of that. I think that's a great start. We all have great beer. We all bring different things to the table, whether it be music or food or pizzas or whatever. We have a lot to show off. And I'm fortunate with what you were saying, Bobby. Besides beer, we're fortunate because we have that food aspect,
right?
But then you have the music, so there are other things, and I think if we pull that all together, and I think there's enough brain cells at this table that we can come up with some pretty cool ideas, and
for sure.
And start
but also to your point that you made earlier, it takes the community as well. It's not just the breweries. I mean, when we go to, let's say, even as close as Milwaukee or Madison, it also involves a hotel stay. And it involves restaurants, like where we're going to eat, that kind of thing. So I think it's not just the breweries. It's what else does Appleton have to offer, whether that be restaurants or nightlife or hotel, whatever have you. And it's all here, but how do we all get on the same page?
Yeah, coordinate that.
Yeah.
For the record, like I spent 13 years traveling around the world. I was a noted travel photographer. I was heavily involved in the travel industry. Then there was a pandemic, ruined all of that. But when most people think of Wisconsin, they think of maybe 3 things at most: Milwaukee, Madison, and Green Bay. And they only think of Green Bay because of the Packers. We are not a destination that is on the way to anywhere else. Because of the way the Great Lakes work, nobody comes here to get to somewhere else. So you only are coming here if you have a reason for coming here. How do you, what are some of the things you think you could do to get on the map? Because a lot of this, I think, is like Asheville, North Carolina. You don't think of it for much. It's not in the news all the time. It's not a major city, even in North Carolina. Yet it was one of the things that came to mind immediately for you in terms of beer. Mm-hmm. What do you think are some of the things that could be done to make Appleton at least stick out in people's minds, or to put it on the map?
And that's the hard thing that we try to figure out. I think once people get here, they see it. Mile of Music is first in mind. And what we have going on in this community with Mile of Music, the first weekend in August every year, this is the 11th one that they've done. It is absolutely something special. Mm-hmm. It's free music all through our downtown. It's all walkable. There's all the things Appleton are compacted into that weekend, and the more people we can get to that, they'll see how this community is. It's something special here. Everybody's smiling. People open doors for each other. It's very, very low crime, very safe, very clean, and very happy.
And that's a really big example of what I was trying to say when we need to think past beer. That's a really big example. Mile of Music is something we can definitely leverage, events like that.
But just like we were talking about before, how every brewery is a little bit different. They all started a little bit differently. They all do different things, and it can still work. That can be said about the area. So it's like looking at how we could grow. From my point of view in our brewery, it's, well, should we get large? Should we become a big brewery? For us, it's still making great beer. Obviously, being in the IPA world, those are some of the most snobby beer drinkers I've ever seen. And we're competing with national brands who have perfected this over decades. And we're like, new to the party going, hey, we make IPAs too. So for us, it's like still about making great beer. And then if we can get big enough where our beer is out there a little bit further, maybe someone's like has it in Milwaukee and goes, hey, let's go up to that area. I want to visit that place that I had this great beer at. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, but I mean, that's a way that it could grow as well.
Great point. I've been doing this how many years? Doing festivals and distributing across now 35 counties because we're trying to get our name out there. So I think Oliver's right. I think distribution, and Steve said earlier too, is largely it's about marketing, just getting the word out there.
Yeah, and that carrier, that label, that's a business card.
Yes,
come visit us. Yeah. And fortunately, the craft beer drinkers do it.
Yes.
They will travel, they will visit, and that's the only thing that came good out of the pandemic is a lot of people. They couldn't travel, so they were hopping in their cars. They're driving around, checking out what's in this beautiful state. So,
right.
I think another part, just to add on, is that Appleton does have a lot of stuff to do. It's family friendly. It's got a whole bunch of parks. It's got like the kids museum downtown. It's got various things that families can do, and it's pretty darn affordable compared to, say, Milwaukee or Chicago or Madison.
Minneapolis.
I work at Lawrence University, and so we have a lot of folks coming through. Their parents delivering their kids to campus or whatever. And so I think that there is some destinations in Appleton that make it a place that people stop, but it won't necessarily be to go and have a craft beer. But I think while they're there, there's now starting to become this, when you go through Appleton to do this other thing you have to do, say to go to a show at the PAC, make sure you stop at and then list the brewery. So I think that's becoming more common.
And given time too, that's going to grow as well. So if somebody comes here to go to Mile of Music, PAC, what have you, then they maybe visit one or two breweries. If they really love something, they go back to their hometown, and maybe that puts us on the map next time. They're like, hey, let's go back there and let's stop at those breweries and spend the whole day doing it and bop around to all of them. I mean, that's how we do it, when we go to other cities. So I think it also takes a little bit of time where people have been here and want to come back.
They have to garner trust in what we do, and things will grow.
Let's talk about the craft beer scene. Are you guys, I don't know, did you grow up in Appleton at all?
Yes.
Okay. So did I. And my parents, my grandparents, you'd always go to the tavern. And if you look at the list of like bars per capita, Appleton is always in like the top 10 in the United States, and 8 of the 10 are always in the state of Wisconsin. We got a lot of bars. Going to the bar is a very common thing. I think it used to be different in that it was more like what you guys found in England, where you would bring your family. And lately, it's also it's kind of gotten away from that, where it is this sports bar thing or a place where you go to get trashed or something like that. Are you seeing the type of people that come to you as a destination that are looking for premium beers, something different? Is that growing?
I would say yes. For us, every day if you walk into our brewery at any given time, whether it's when we first open, middle of the day, at night, there's families in there, there's kids in there, there's infants in there. People bring infants to breweries, which is crazy.
Mama's got a drink
Exactly.
too.
Yeah, you can see their face like, no, give me the beer. So I think it also goes back to my point of how Wisconsin is slow to change, especially the Fox Valley. So there is still this large group of people who go to bars or their supper club for fish fry or whatever they do. So this idea of going to a brewery in this area is still fairly new. So I think that the growth aspect is there to be had, but it's definitely a switch where if I go into a bar now, I'm seeing a very different group of people there as opposed to what I saw 10 years ago. But now when I go to a brewery, I see families, or even if it's not families, it's friends hanging out, catching up over beers. That used to be done at a bar, you're right, and now it's being done at a brewery.
And it's extremely so in Wisconsin, bringing families to a breweries.
Well, and it gets back to the quality versus quantity. And I look at the word bar, I see quantity. When I hear tavern or pub, I think quality. And then that's where I see family versus 22-year-olds that want to outdo each other. And, that's not our demographic.
No, and we were naive when we wrote our business plan we were going to create a pub. We thought, naive in the sense that we thought that was a unique idea, a public house. Well, that's what everybody's doing. And
we were naive in
craft,
so many ways.
in the
Let
craft
me
beer
list them.
sphere. But I think that really encapsulates what we're all trying to do, is create the public house. And we don't call it that, but that's what it is.
Well, like Oliver said earlier too, it's just like you go home at the end. Like, so it's you go to work, you go to the pub, you have your pint or two, your friends gather. And for us, our kids' daycare is just 2 blocks away. Thank goodness. So we go pick up the kid. To the brewery we go.
Here. Yeah, it's we could talk this to death, but I think I've been here, I've been to your place. And every scene is kind of the same, where it's you've got at any time you've got a family having fun together. You've got friends, old friends, new friends. There's people celebrating things. There's people, getting over a funeral maybe. There's a father-son playing games. It's all walks of life in a brewery at any time. And that is pretty special. And I think that's what makes the brewery scene so unique compared to other places right now.
And I think, too, is something that not to be forgotten is dogs. Dogs are family.
Yeah.
And we're seeing it more and more. And we're all our places are dog-friendly outside.
Yep.
Because the city won't allow it inside yet. I'd love to see that change.
Yeah.
It's got to change.
They're part of families, and there's a lot of people that are foregoing the kids and having their furry kids instead, and that's the difference. You go to the bar. The bars downtown that do have outdoor patios, I never see dogs there.
Right.
Dogs and breweries go together, and that's, I think, a key thing as well. And that's another thing that will grow exponentially.
This is located downtown. I know where your location is on Earthland. That's a big, kind of busy street.
Yep.
You're kind of on the south side of town, a little bit off
the beaten path,
Oh,
just a
Oneida.
little bit though. Yeah.
How much do you rely on regulars? I know there are a couple people here that basically live here.
90% for us. No,
Honestly, we probably do 25% of all our revenue on our what we call
regulars.
our pub club.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm surprised it's that high.
It is that high. Yeah, it's
Wow.
extreme.
They are devoted,
Yeah.
and we love them dearly.
But we have different levels of pub club. There's the one that you talk about that actually have a cot and live here.
Yeah.
Or almost.
Or if they don't show up, then we contact them and ask if they're okay.
We don't have a mug club or pub club or any kind of loyalty program whatsoever. But our regulars, they are massive to us, and they come. Some come in every day, some come in every week, and then some are once a month. And I think we all need them to survive. But yeah, our regulars, I'm picturing them in my mind, and right now they're massive to us. We wouldn't be who we are without them.
What's the 80-20 rule? 80% of your focus should be on the 20% of your business, the
Yep.
upper 20%. Yeah.
Well, and looking at regulars, it's obviously a huge part of ours. We do have a loyalty program, and we were a little spoiled early on is that we didn't have this competition per se, so we had a lot more of them. We've been around longer too, so some of them have aged past hanging out at the pub scene. But what I have big time noticed is that we have the dailies, the weeklies, the monthlies as well. The monthlies I see at Bobby's place, and I see at your place, and I see at ABF. And that's very typical where I'll go in and I'll see those monthly regulars at the other places. And that's cool. That's really neat.
And I think those are the ones that are really going to help bolster that Appleton is a beer destination, because when their families come into town, they're like, all right, you're here on Thursday, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do, they're going to go all across the place.
Spread the love.
We've talked about the number of breweries in Appleton, but let's talk about your individual breweries and growth. It's kind of an old adage that if you're not growing, you're dying. What have you guys been thinking in terms of growing your businesses? Do you grow it within your location? You package more beer and sell it that way? Open up a second location? Have you thought about doing any of that?
So we did open a second location about 2.5 years ago in the neighboring town of Little Chute. It's quite a different feel that we have. We call it the Stonearch Tide House. We don't actually brew there, but Tide House is a old term that was utilized quite a bit in the Milwaukee beer market, where it's tied to, and certainly the English market, where it's tied to a brewery. So it's our beer there. We just don't brew it. It's got a little bit of a different menu twist. Total different feel. It's in a newer building. It's all subsurface, a lot of windows, bright sun, beautiful beer garden. We have a dog park, and actually off-leash, chain-linked area for dogs to be off-leash, versus our main location is in a historic building built in 1858 as a brewery. So there's not a lot of manipulations you can do to that thing. The walls are 4 feet thick.
But not only that, your restaurant's in the lower part.
In the lower
in the
part.
basement.
We don't have windows.
Gorgeous, stone, cavern. You go down, and it's like the most warm and welcoming
the name
place.
of your restaurant is Stonearch, but I still say Stone Cellar.
It was originally Stone Cellar.
Yeah.
We had to change it because some goofy government thing. But we are in a Stone Cellar. Matter of fact, our dining room was where they stored the beer back in the day. And in our back dining room, there's a bricked-in area where they used to back up the horse and trailer and load the trailer and bring the beer out to market every day. So it's a very unique atmosphere. We're very proud of it.
What was the brewery that was there?
It started out, Antoine Fisher started out 1858, Star Brewery at one point. It was Appleton Brewing and Malting Company at one point.
Oh, they malted there.
And they actually malted
Wow.
there. Yep. Where our tap room is actually.
cool.
Was where they were doing the malting. I just found this out. And then George Walter Brewing Company in 1919 bought it out because they were really experiencing growth. George had passed by now, but they were really experiencing growth, so they bought a second location to brew more, and then Prohibition set in. So they actually never brewed in our building, but that company owned the building for a period of time. So that's pretty cool.
I think for us, growth, obviously we're looking to grow, but it's also terrifying because this industry is so expensive. It's hard for us sometimes to figure out how to grow. I mean, you want to let things grow organically, but if you don't have a purpose in a place, like what's our destination, you're never going to get there. So for us, it's a constant debate, let's call it, between my wife and I on how we should grow. Hopefully she never listens to this. So our plan is to get bigger. We're not looking to be this monster brewery. We don't want to distribute through the whole country or anything silly like that. But space-wise, we're running out of space. So we are looking at expanding our brewery. We have talked about a second location. There's plans.
We need to talk, sir. We need to talk.
Let's do a whole show on second locations.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, it's...
Or we all just build a contract brewery and call it a day.
Or we open timeshare, but that's another conversation.
brewery.
All right, that's going to wrap this episode up. Thanks once again for listening to the Respecting the Beer podcast. If you enjoy the show, remember to subscribe on your favorite podcast player to get every episode. And also make sure to follow our Facebook group and support us on Patreon, links to which are found in the show notes.